WWE did a 365 special on Seth Rollins. This is the fourth 365 special they've done. The first one was a couple years ago. That was on Kevin Owens. That was very good. The second one on AJ Styles, that was okay. That was in last year. And then earlier this year, they did one on Alexa Bliss, which I actually really enjoyed. I found her very likable. And now this one on Seth Rollins, we're going to see Seth, his reactions, probably to getting booed. We're going to see his relationship with Becky on full display, I suppose. So I'm interested to seeing this. I think this probably will start SummerSlam, maybe. That's how they usually do it. Oh, actually, it's not going to be SummerSlam. It's Survivor Series. So it's from Survivor Series 2018 to Survivor Series 2019. We start off in Chicago this year, and I believe they'll go back to last year, which I believe was Los Angeles. So that's a good moment, and we see that'll probably show him winning the Rumble and winning the title at WrestleMania. So we'll get a good year of his rise to stardom. And, of course, his collapse and the fans turning on him, too. And I believe with Seth, I'm pretty sure he is the only wrestler to have a 24 and a 365 because AJ, Kevin, and Alexa, I don't think I've ever had 24, so that's a first. His 24 was pretty good. That was a few years ago. Now this is his 365. We go back a year, and it's Seth Rollins against Shinsuke Nakamura in Los Angeles, and that match was so forgettable, I forgot it even happened, but that did happen last year at Survivor Series in 2018. So after that, we go to his wrestling school, and he watches guys wrestling. He likes watching them learn, and he's a teacher, and he committed to the school. It's kind of cool how he mentions it's kind of sees himself in them. You know, when he started wrestling around 18, 19, he sees these guys around the same age, and he obviously relates to them. So the next event we go to is the Royal Rumble, which took place in Phoenix on January 27th, 2019. And, of course, this is where Seth Rollins won the Royal Rumble. And the Rumble itself, Rollins eventually got the win. He eliminated Strowman. At the end, he curb stomped him on the apron. He got the win. That match, it was a decent Rumble. That was okay. I remember the Rumble this year. The two Rumble matches, like Seth and Becky won, but I don't know. I thought the Rumble this year was a bit disappointing as an overall show. He talks about Becky, his relationship with her. I guess they really didn't start dating until recently. He even talks as the first time he kissed her was at the Royal Rumble weekend. I was thinking, oh, really? Because didn't they get engaged like a few months after that? Like, that was quick. I mean, 4 months nowadays, man, it's pretty quick. I guess they really like each other a lot, but I didn't realize, I thought they were with each other for a lot longer than any time recently, than just recently. But I guess good for them, I guess. They show him and her celebrating their victories at the Royal Rumble, and they would both win the Rumble, and then they both won the titles at WrestleMania. And it's kind of cool. Becky won the Rumble earlier on the show. Seth main evented the Rumble, then Seth won the WrestleMania. He won the Universal title early in the show, and then Becky main event Mania. So both with big successes. I guess him and Cesaro would do this thing where they go to every town they tried coffee, and this would lead Seth opening up his own coffee shop. Now we get to WrestleMania. He's ready for the biggest match of his career, probably at this point. He's facing Brock Lesnar for the Universal title, and he will open the show against Brock Lesnar. This was actually the site of his first WrestleMania. I did not know that. 35, because at 29, that was his debut match with the Shield at WrestleMania. Him, Roman, and Dean, they faced, I think it was Big Show, Orton, and Sheamus in the 6-man tag, and that's where he debuted. That was his first big show, at WrestleMania 29. It's not his first WrestleMania, and now it comes full circle. He wins the Universal title at that same venue. Okay, this is very interesting. The card that came out had him going on second to last, so they would go right on before Becky. However, things changed, and now he started the show, so that was strange. So they eventually started, and they start the show right after Hulk Hogan came out, when I think had Alexa Bliss as the host. That's how the show started. Heyman comes out, and he starts yelling about how Brock was in the main event, and if we're not going to go on last, we're going to start off and we're going to go to Las Vegas, where we'll be ultimately appreciated. Brock comes out, and then Seth has a big entrance, in which he has like a giant sword that destroys Brock's big beast symbol. He's the Beast Slayer. Gets a big pop. He comes out. Him and Brock, it's a quick match. Brock kills him at first. The match ever starts. Right when the match starts, Seth's down. He's trying to recover. However, he hits a low blow. So the match was nuts. After he hits the low blow, he hits him with a super kick. 3 consecutive curb stomps. 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins, you're your new Universal Champion. That happened at WrestleMania this past year. And it was cool. They were showing Becky's reaction in the back. And she was very happy for her man. The man's man. I like how they addressed Seth was, he was happy he won, but he was disappointed he wasn't in the main event. I like how he actually admitted that. Eventually, we get to the main event, and that's Charlotte versus Ronda versus Becky. Triple threat match, both titles on the line, and Seth sees his love. Win the main event of WrestleMania and become a double champ. Becky 2 belts. She wins both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship. I'm actually happy they actually addressed Dean Ambrose leaving the WWE, and they would have that last match with the Shield, the Shield's final chapter. It was actually a couple weeks after WrestleMania. I'm glad they brought that up and didn't hide from it. That was actually kind of cool. I want to hear his feelings on Dean. Of course, he made those comments on Moxley actually when he left for AEW. That's when Seth started to get shit from the fans. Right when he attacked Moxley, it felt like, man, you're turning on your brother, you're turning on your friend. That's when they turned on him, and that changed a lot of stuff. So it was the Shield against Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. Oh, God, they used to have those screws of fashion. It was terrible. That fucking sucked. Ugh. But, yeah, this was the show they had, and Shield would get the win. And it was kind of cool seeing after the Shield ends and they give their goodbyes. Rollins is saying he's happy. I think they should all go in their separate ways. It's better for him and Roman. He has not mentioned Dean, but I don't know if there's still heat between Rollins and Ambrose or Rollins and Moxley now. There could be, because he ripped them after Moxley went on the Chris Jericho show. He on this podcast, he ripped everybody to shreds. Rollins he responded, and he went after Moxley, and he says, I don't think you should have done it that way, and he can't handle it. He said stuff like that. That's when the fans really start to turn on Rollins. Eventually, we get to Extreme Rules, and this is in his title reign. He's treating with Baron Corbin. It was horrible. The summer of 2019 is fucking shit. It was like 2 main programs, and both of them sucked. Seth and Becky are at the same time. Seth feuds with Baron Corbin for a Universal title for 3 months. All of them are horrible. I think he had 3 pay-per-view matches with him in a row. Becky Lynch at that same time feud with Lacey Evans for the Raw Women's title, and that feud was fucking horrendous. It went on forever, went on for 3 full months, and all 3 matches sucked. Eventually, Seth beat Baron twice, Becky beat Lacey twice, and eventually they had a mixed tag team match as the main event of Extreme Rules this past year. Seth... in the match, Baron Corbin does a shocking, he hits Becky Lynch with his finisher, the Deep Six, or not the Deep Six, End of Days. He hits an End of Days to Becky. Seth freaks out, he kills Baron Corbin, and all of a sudden Brock Lesnar cashes in his beatbox Money in the Bank briefcase, hits an F5, 1, 2, 3, Brock Lesnar, your new Universal Champion. Eventually, we get to SummerSlam in Toronto, and that's when they have the rematch. Actually, this is the 3rd match they would have had this year. Seth won the first one at Mania, then Brock cashed in Extreme Rules, and now it's SummerSlam, the Universal title on their line. Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins main event. And I thought that show should have been in the Sky Dome, but they had to do it in the Rogers Center instead. Whereas the Rogers Center, the Sky Dome, I'm not sure. The smaller arena, Rogers Center is the new Sky Dome, and the new the basketball arena or whatever. And the reason was because there was a baseball game, but I wish they could have scheduled it at the right time. That would have been really cool to do a big show in a big stadium, because that venue actually hosted WrestleMania 3 and 6. But they did the show in the arena, and SummerSlam, it's very forgettable this year. I forgot the whole show already, to be honest.
Seth even talks about how in that match with going win the match at Brock for the match at SummerSlam, how Brock was Seth was getting a lot of negative feedback from the fans, and that was due to the comments he made on the podcast defending WWE, and he got into that big war with AEW. I think he got into a Twitter war with not an AEW wrestler, but I think it was Zack Sabre. Was it him? Zack Sabre? Or maybe not Zack Sabre, someone, Will Ospreay, I don't know, one of them, one of those two, so one of them. He got into a bit of a Twitter war, and then AEW guys were talking shit, and he wanted to stick up for WWE. Right now, WWE's in a much better position than AEW is, so I think Seth might have won. And the fans in Toronto, it was a pretty mixed crowd. Some liked him, some didn't, and this is a hardcore wrestling show, so he got some boos here for sure. But he was facing Brock, so I don't know how much they're going to cheer for Brock, someone who's never there. Seth with the victory over Brock. The match they had was very good. Some people thought Brock should have won. I'm not so sure. They should have had Seth win that match, but they had him win. And what they did after was they would have him as Universal Champion, and unfortunately, that's where the fans would really turn on him after this match. After he walks backstage, he kisses Becky like they did after WrestleMania. I thought it was kind of cool. If they connect, they do it three pay-per-views in a row. All three of the big four. The Rumble, they both win. WrestleMania, Seth starts the show and wins the Universal title, and Becky main events and wins both the Raw and SmackDown Women's title. Then at SummerSlam, Becky opened the show and she retained her Raw Women's title match against Natalya. And Seth main events and he wins back the Universal title from Brock. So a lot happened with those two. They really, they won all the big matches they were supposed to this year. So after SummerSlam, he goes on a vacation with Becky Lynch. They go to Hawaii, and they're there, and I think they're in Mumbai, whatever it's called. And they're on a very gorgeous beach, and that's where he officially asks Rebecca Quinn to be his wife. And she says yes. She has his ring, and he was making the ring for her. He designed his own ring for her, which was cool. And they eventually get married. Well, I don't know if they got married, but they get engaged there. And they went on vacation, and that was after SummerSlam. So congratulations to Seth and Becky for that. And we'll see what's next for them if they continue their storyline as a couple on TV. But they are officially engaged, and they're probably going to marry very soon. And they show the two of them as champions at a host show, celebrating. And eventually, around this time is where the fans really go after Seth. They hate him soon after. This is when he starts to feud with Bray Wyatt. And this is actually a kind of a cool part. Seth takes Becky to a football game, the Chicago Bears. This is the NFL kickoff this year. The Bears, because it was the 100-year anniversary of the NFL, they started the season off against the Green Bay Packers at home. He takes his fiance now to the game, and Becky has no idea anything about football, which is actually kind of cute. And this was cool. One thing I hate Seth in football, he always tweets whenever the Bears lose, I hate football. He looks like such a fucking geek when he tweets that. Like, I hate football. I love football when they win, which is not very often this year. Just so stupid. I don't know. I think he looks like a fucking geek when he does that. There's actually a really funny part. Seth Rollins meets Roger Goodell at the game, and he tells Becky this is the bad guy in the NFL, which is actually hilarious. They even show him meeting Jay Cutler. Why? How is he a fan of Jay Cutler? How could you be a fan of his? But he says he's a fan, and he's meeting people at the game. He's obviously a huge mark. It's kind of funny. I'm sure he's the kind of guy who makes fun of wrestling fans to a mark, but he's a massive mark. It's kind of cool seeing him be, really happy to be there. Him and Becky. Another cool part, he actually takes a DNA test at 23andme.com, and there he finds out he has a half-sister, and he meets this young girl, and I guess they have the same father, I'm not sure, but it was actually a really nice moment. They actually meet each other, and I don't know, she's a really pretty girl. Maybe Vince will sign her, you never know, but I thought that was actually a nice, sweet moment. Next, we go to Hell in a Cell, and that's where he faces Bray, and this is where things really start to went downhill, because this was the worst match of the year. And this is a spoiler because my Year in the War comes out in a few days. That's going to be the worst match of the year, so I'm spoiling already. That was fucking horrendous. So he's angry, the fans are turned on him, and then eventually, he leads to the rematch of Bray, and they have the match in Saudi Arabia on Halloween, and that's where The Fiend wins the title. He wins the Universal title from Seth Rollins. Eventually, we get to the year end, and that's Survivor Series 2019 in Chicago, and that's how we come full circle. There's an amazing moment. We see him meet his half-brother and half-sister, which was really cool. And the fact we're actually at Survivor Series, seeing him wrestle, that's a really nice moment. So that's where it ends. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a good documentary, a good 365. He came off a lot more likable than he might come off on Twitter, and I thought this was certainly a good documentary and worth watching.